Hi, I'm Pastor Tae of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTae.com. Welcome to Espresso. It's an interactive Bible study that is like Espresso, strong and smooth. Enjoy the taste. Hey, Titus 2 community. I'm Pastor Tae of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTae.com, and welcome to Talk Live Tuesday. This is a live conversation inside the Titus 2 community. We're so excited to bring these live conversations to you as we learn about marriage together. Hey, if you're watching this on a replay, welcome. We get it that not everybody can make it. You have a life to live. And it's just so great that we can have the replay available for you. And let's confirm where they are all archived. If you are a newcomer, know that there is a menu tab to your left. Okay? If you are on a desktop or a laptop, the tab is called Units, and it's to your left. If you are on a mobile device, the Unit tab should be above you, and so go check that out, and you will see all the previous shows. If you are a newcomer, that should be very much good news for you, that you have not missed out. You can go back and listen. You can still drop comments and questions, and I will be notified, and I will answer them for you, okay? And also, you'll see other guest speakers there. So how great is that? Like Dr. Don Owsley is Don in the audience. Okay, he is a good man and a good teacher. You want to check out his material. Eileen Scipione, George Zhao, okay, and others in the future will be there. And so how exciting that we have a Units tab of stuff for you, because we are building a curriculum of marriage for your spiritual growth and edification. And by the way, if you are watching us through our YouTube channel called Espresso, we are so glad that you are with us. I hope that you are blessed by it. Drop comments. We'll respond a little later. And then please join us inside the Titus 2 community. All right, we're almost ready to begin, but I want to introduce to you the man himself. He was on vacation last week, but he is back with a new t-shirt. He is Stuart Martin. Everyone say hello.
Hi, guys.
Okay. So that's Stuart Martin, all right? And he is going to manage our time. You know, I never listen to him anyway, right? But he tries to manage the time, but it doesn't work. And he's going to check your comments. And so tonight, he's going to focus on, making sure that all your comments and questions get to me and so forth. And now, here inside these conversations, we actually take the 4 top topics and we rotate them. So the 4 topics in marriage are communication, conflict, in-laws, sex. Let's say that again. Communication, conflict, in-laws, sex. And then what we do is we dedicate 1 week to each topic, and then when we finish, we start the rotation all over again. And we are on our 3rd rotation. We are really blessed that this show continues to move forward. We're on our 3rd rotation, the 3rd set of 4, and we are now on the 2nd in the 3rd rotation, which is conflict. Now, conflict is a huge topic. There's so many ways that we have conflict with each other, so many ways we resolve those conflicts. It is a huge category. And so every time we come to this topic, we have to break it down and focus on one particular topic. And tonight, wow, it is a big one in and of itself, and that is anger. Because anger is the number one way that you break a relationship. It's huge. In fact, I think we could dedicate about 5 shows to anger. We don't have that kind of luxury of time. We're going to, you're going to feel like it's a little bit inadequate, and I apologize in advance for that. It's just 1 show. Now, if you get really angry, we might add another show. But right now, the plan is to do 1 show. Hopefully, we'll be able to diagnose some important things about anger, and you'll be able to benefit and then be inspired to learn more about it. Speaking of learning more about it, I got a little surprise for you, okay? I got a gift that I want to give to you, meaning it's free, okay? In fact, look underneath your chair right now. You will find, I'm just kidding, okay? I'm not Oprah, okay? There's nothing underneath your chair, all right? But I will give you a gift, I promise, at the end of the show, where you can get more. And I was just feeling bad as I was doing this, preparing this show, because I know you're going to feel like, hey, we want more. And I am definitely going to give you more. at the end of the show today, all right? So without further ado, let's jump right into our focus topic for today.
Hi, people.
Okay.
Can I say
Stuart.
hi to Warren, George, Don, and Sandra?
Wow.
And Daniel.
Wow. That is a nice group of people right there. And so welcome from all different places and countries. George from Canada. We have Don in Denver. We have Warren in Pasadena. Who is the lady that you mentioned?
Sandra.
Sandra, where are you from? Is this Sandra or Sandra? I'm not sure. I apologize.
I like both.
But both are very, very nice. Okay, our focus topic is anger. And what we're going to do is we're going to diagnose it tonight. And in fact, would you write this down? And somebody, Dr. Don, would you do that from Denver? Would you drop it inside the scroll, please? I'm talking about the question of the night. We're talking about anger. Not everything, unfortunately, but the question of the night is, do you have an anger problem?
Sandra's from Downey.
Down? Oh, local. Very local. We are here.
Andrea says hi, too.
Hello, Andrea. Very nice to have you. And so the question of the night is, do you have an anger problem? I'm talking about you, okay? I'm asking you, not your spouse. Don't look at your spouse. You know, it's so easy to look at our spouses, right, and say, hey, he's got a serious anger problem. But listen, the intent of the show, the intent of Scripture, is for you to look at yourself. That's our focus tonight. So look at yourself. Let's take a little time out and break from accusing our spouse, for all the things they do wrong, and take a look at ourselves and see if we actually have an anger problem. And by the way, if your spouse does have an anger problem, by all means, you can take this show and give it to him or her as a replay. Okay, so that's great. Again, the unit tabs, go access that later. Now tonight, we are going to diagnose anger for you. Again, not everything, but I'm going to give you 3 test questions. Remember, the bigger question on the top is, do you have an anger problem? I'm going to give you 3 major test questions to flesh out that question as to whether you have an anger problem or not. So I'm going to give you 3 questions, and I want you to answer either yes or no, okay, to those 3 test questions. Now, answering a yes, that is not good, okay? You want to get a no. I'm going to ask you, and you got to say no. And if you get 3 no's, that is a perfect score, okay? All right. And so we want some of you to get a perfect score. So listen, it's possible tonight to get a perfect score. That doesn't mean you're perfect. In fact, we know you guys are sinners, right? Hey, can somebody drop an amen in the scroll that we are all sinners saved by the amazing grace of our Lord Jesus Christ? Somebody say amen in the scroll.
Orange says hi.
Diane, hello, Diane. Okay. How about Diane and everybody? Drop an amen and tell me that you are a sinner saved by the amazing grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. But we know that when we become a believer, that God works in our lives. So in this particular area, you might get a perfect score. Okay? And so I'm going to ask you 3 questions tonight. If you get 3 no's, you get a perfect score. And then you need to be giving God all the glory that He is doing a good work in your life in this particular area. And so let's get started, shall we? Okay, Stuart, you ready? Okay, Dr. Don, thanking you for your scroll support. We are ready to go. And so the question of the night is, do you have an anger problem? But we want to now break it down with 3 questions to flesh it out. Yes or no? Here is test question number 1 underneath the larger question. And that is, do you let the devil influence your anger? Do you let the devil influence your anger? Okay, yes or no? Now, everybody gets mad once in a while. But some people, let the devil have access. Let the devil actually get involved. Now, let's confirm, okay, something real simple. This is your anger, okay? Congratulations. It's all yours, okay? But in the middle of getting angry, it's possible that the devil, or you might, in this case, that's the test question, you might actually allow the devil to wield his influence on you. That is not a good thing. What did you write down? Yes or no? In fact, the key verse for tonight is Ephesians chapter 4. Dr. Don, would you please drop that in the scroll, please? Ephesians chapter 4, verses 26 through 27 says, "Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold." Now, what does it mean for the devil to have a foothold? From the original Greek, it literally can be translated, "give the devil a place." So we're talking about a place or an opportunity, meaning the devil will use your anger. Remember, it's all yours. You got to take responsibility for it, which is what I'm going to emphasize a little bit later. But right now, we're talking about the devil's opportunity, wielding his influence on you for his evil purposes. And so, test question number 1, underneath the larger question, do you have an anger problem, is, do you allow the devil to do that? Wield his influence? Can I say it this way? Are you under the influence? Okay? Are you under the influence? Now, there are many ways that the devil can wield his influence. And in the context of Ephesians chapter 4, we're talking about stuff that is internal. In this case, your anger is all inside you, and what the devil can do is he can influence all that stuff that is inside you. How, you might ask? I'm going to give you 3 sub-questions underneath test question number 1. Test question number 1 is, do you allow the devil to have his influence? Well, let me give you 3 sub-questions to flesh out whether or how he does that, having his influence on you. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. 3 things. Number 1, he can influence your mind, okay? In other words, he can play with your mind. Now, it is still your mind, okay? You're still thinking about the stuff, but he can bring to mind or incite or stimulate or cause you to recall everything that your spouse has done wrong. I mean, ain't that the truth? How many times have you got mad and if this is you, you say, yeah, I'm guilty, okay? Put that in the scroll. Tell me if you're guilty of this or not. Where if your spouse does something wrong, suddenly it's like a light that goes on. Suddenly it's like a trigger or a light switch, or, you know, it's like back in the 70s, the pinball machines, you know, ding, 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 all the lights and things flashing and things moving around. In other words, your mind is now thinking about all the things. Not just that one thing on that day, but everything that your spouse has done wrong. You doing that? You know, one woman told me that when she gets mad at her husband, that it's like a movie reel that is unfolding. That was her analogy. And I thought it was very insightful. Because what she's saying is that she is now watching this movie of everything that her husband has done wrong. Her husband is the star of the movie, and she is now binge watching everything that her husband has done wrong. And I'm telling you, that movie is longer than Star Wars. It's longer than 10 Rocky movies. Way longer than those Batman movies, and he is the evil villain in that movie, right? And so, have you done that? Oh, that's very real. In other words, playing it all out. But my point is, it's not just you. Remember the 3 subpoints underneath number 1, that the devil can have his influence on you? It could be that you are allowing the devil to play with your mind. Bring to mind, and that's one of the things he can do to you. Influence your mind, that is. Question number 2, underneath question number 1. Hope you're not getting too confused. Let's see if we can get that organization figured out. And that is, Satan can influence your emotions. Okay, so we're talking about satanic influence now, all right? And so you're angry, and now all of a sudden, you are really angry. Have you had that experience? You're just a little bit irritated, and now all of a sudden, it's like full-blown anger. You are so emotional. And now, you're starting to have even evil desires. Or you're so angry you have this desire to punish and to hurt your spouse. Have you gotten to a point where you just hate your spouse? Okay? You get that emotional about that situation. I mean, the anger is just like coming out of you uncontrolled. It reminds me of, and please drop this in the scroll, Proverbs chapter 27, verse 4, where it says, anger is cruel and fury overwhelming. And in the original Hebrew, the word overwhelming is flood. And so it's the idea of tidal waves or this internal tsunami that is coming out. A flood or a hurricane that is just devastating, okay? Miles and miles of devastation. It's Hurricane Katrina causing damage to the United States several years ago. And so, would you drop it in the scroll, please? I've got a question to ask you. Do you have a hurricane anger? I just made that up based on Proverbs chapter 27, verse 4. Is your anger like a hurricane? You're just coming out and it's swirling, and it's just 100-mile-an-hour winds, and you are out just destroying. And my point is, in the middle of that, Satan can wield his influence emotionally on you, where it's coming out overwhelming. The floodgates are opening. And so that is the emotional influence that he can have. So track it, please. We're still on test question number 1. We're going through 3 sub-questions underneath it. Is that making sense? The first one is he messes with your mind. The second one is he influences your emotions. And the third one is, real quick, that Satan can influence your words. Okay? Now all kinds of terrible words are coming out of your mouth. Stop me if you got a question. I'll stop, okay? I know I'm like a runaway train right now, but I got a lot of good stuff to share with you tonight. So stop me, but right now, I'm telling you, subpoint number 3 is about hurtful words. It's about careless words. It's about reckless words. It's just coming out. And have you ever, said words that just like cut to the heart? I mean, just like really, really hurt the other person. That reminds me of Proverbs chapter 12, verse 18, where it says, reckless words pierce like a sword. Okay, so now your words, what? Your mind's messed up, your emotions are influenced, and now your words are coming out like a sword, and it's cutting to the heart. You know, before when you were calm, cool, your words went through a filter. But now, it's like just cutting, slicing and dicing, piercing like a sword. And so that's the satanic influence that he can have on your life. And so are you under the influence? That's a question you need to consider tonight. So, as a review, test question number 1, what was it? It was, does your anger, or do you let the devil, how did I word it? Do you let the devil influence your anger? That's the main point, okay? I'm going to give you 3 test questions to flesh out the question of the night, which is, do you have an anger problem? Number 1 was, do you let Satan influence you? Number 2, here's a big number 2. Does your anger cloud your judgment? Did you know that expression, cloud your judgment? It's like cloudy, hazy, not clear. So the idea is that you're not thinking clearly, okay? It's clouded. Your judgment is clouded. So listen, everybody gets angry once in a while, but we're trying to determine whether you have an anger problem or not. And so one of the ways is you're not thinking clearly. And one of the evidences of that is you make bad decisions. Do you make bad decisions when you are angry? That's one of the indications whether you have a problem or not. Now, just to clarify, a bad decision is a decision that you regret after you make it. What I mean is you cool down and you realize, I can't believe I said that. Or I can't believe I did that. In other words, in the moment of anger, you thought that was valid. You said a bunch of stuff or you did something and it just seemed like the right thing to do. But later when you cool down and you come to your senses, you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe I said that. Did you ever have that experience or something? Stuart?
I just wanted to say hi to Phil Cooper.
Okay.
Just hello.
Oh, Phil from Illinois. Okay. Hey, Phil. Good to see you tonight. And so we're talking about, decisions that you deeply regret. Just a simple definition, that's a bad decision that you make because you say, I can't believe I said that. Did you ever have that experience where you felt like you were almost tricked? Like you said it and it seemed right, but then once you calmed down, you realized that it was the wrong thing to say. And now you're embarrassed. Ever felt embarrassed that you said the wrong thing? It seemed right, but it ended up being very wrong. Listen, if you've experienced embarrassment, you know what I'm talking about. Anger is tricking you. You feel tricked because now you're embarrassed. You look back at the decision that you made and you realize, wow, that was the wrong decision. You're embarrassed and now you realize you've been duped. You've been fooled. You've been tricked. You've been deceived. Okay? Now I want you to lock in on that word right now if you're taking notes. The The word deceived is very important. What are some noun forms here? Deception or deceit. That's the topic on the table right now. In your anger, okay, your judgment is clouded. We're talking about big point number 2, that your judgment is clouded, right? And you're being tricked, fooled, deceived. We're talking about deception. We're talking about deceit. In fact, that's one of the more powerful ways that the Bible describes sin, or in this case, angry sin. Because there are very few things that are more serious than anger as a sin. And so I'm applying this theology of how sin or angry sin has the power to deceive you. It's deceitful. In fact, allow me, and because of time, I'm not going to read these verses, but I'm going to give you verses that describe anger as deceitful. In fact, would you write this down, Dr. Don, please? Drop it in the scroll. That sin is deceitful. And so an anger problem, listen, an anger problem is an experience of deceit. Okay, so you got a serious anger problem. You are experiencing constant deception. You're being fooled. Let me give you some verses here about being tricked. Jeremiah 17, verse 9. Please drop that in. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 22. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 12 through 13. I mean, there's more verses. Okay, you guys can look it up yourself, but the idea is that sin, by definition, is deceitful. It fools you. It's trickery. Okay, you're being fooled. And that is the situation when you get so angry, you think you're right, and then later, when you got a little more calm, you realize, wow, I've been tricked. I said a whole bunch of stuff. Now, just like point number 1, big point number 1, I gave you 3 subpoints underneath it. Here we are on subpoint number 2. I'm going to give you 3 points underneath it. 3 ways that anger is deceiving you. Okay, remember, big point number 2 is about your judgment being clouded. Yes or no? That's one way you know whether you have an anger problem or not. Here is 3 subpoints. We're talking more specifically about how anger is now deceiving you. 3 ways. 3 subpoints. Number 1. Anger is deceiving you when you justify your anger. Anger is fooling you when you justify your anger, validate it like it was the right thing to do. I know that sounds crazy, but come on, okay? I'm going to say some strong stuff right now, okay? But if you don't think I'm right, okay, push back. But I'm going to say right now, because the Titus 2 community represents people from all over the world. And there are some places, again, I'm not trying to pick on any particular place or culture or things, but I just want you to hear me out. If you are in a situation, if you're in a surrounding, subgroup, culture, or whatever, that justifies your anger, justifies even a violent form of anger, you are dead wrong. You justify something like that, you're wrong. It's sin against God. Talk to me. Tell me about it. I'm telling you about it, that there are cultures out there that justify even killing family members, or justify what? All kinds of violent behavior, beating your wife. There's some cultures right now, some subgroups that think it's all right. Smack her upside the head. She deserves it, right? I mean, you got to knock some sense into her every once in a while. And they laugh about that. Hey, nothing funny about that. You lay a hand on your wife, nothing justified about that. You are dead wrong. Stuart.
Yeah, I liked Heather's comment. She said words can be like toothpaste. Once they are out, you can't get them back in.
Oh.
You can repent and ask forgiveness, but you can't make things exactly as they were before.
Thank you, Heather. And that reminds me of the analogy I used last week about the can of worms. Can of worms, Stuart. You were listening.
Also,
okay.
George was listening too.
George was listening? Our director was listening? He's a good director.
George Zhao.
George Zhao? Is that how you pronounce his name? I don't know anymore. Every time I pronounce it, it's wrong. Anyway, Heather, thank you. That is definitely good theology there. Once it comes out, it's hard to put back in. I use the analogy of the can of worms. Once they wiggle out, hard to put them back into the can. So listen, you better not be smacking your spouse, okay? Anytime you lay a hand on your spouse, you are dead wrong, all right? You can't justify that. Can't be saying, I'm going to knock some sense into her. The problem is you don't have sense. your judgment is clouded. So listen, if we have anybody inside the Titus 2 community that is beating their spouse, laying a hand, okay, you need to repent before God. Because that stuff is not justified, but that's kind of how sin is, okay? Sin is where it's clouding your judgment and you think it's okay. To be fair, women are like that too, okay? Very abusive. They can be very abusive verbally or physically, violent in their anger. Take that fry pan and smack the husband upside the head, right? Because he deserved it. He was irritating you all day long. Okay, I shouldn't laugh. There are a lot of men that get abused by their spouses as well. And so this is pretty serious stuff. So listen, what we're doing is we got big point number 2, which is about your judgment being clouded. Do you have that problem? We're answering the larger question up here, way up here, guys. Do you have an anger problem? One proposal is, is your judgment clouded, yes or no? And we're now going over the 3 subpoints underneath it. The first one is that you're justifying your anger. Number 2, subpoint underneath here is anger is deceiving you when you blame your spouse for everything. Blame shifting, okay? You don't see your own problem, but that's kind of the fooling or the trickery, right? That's the foolishness or deception that's going on, right? You think it's all your spouse's fault. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because it's so obviously wrong, right? Maybe in the future we'll do a show about blame shifting and how, but right now, hey, it's the oldest sin in the book, right? Hey, the woman you gave me, right? Didn't Adam say that about the woman? And so, blame shifting, that's definitely deceit going on. So much deceit that you can't even see your own sin. And didn't Jesus call us out by saying, in Matthew chapter 7, verses 3 through 5, please drop it in the scroll, thank you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye, right? Come on now. We need to stop looking at our spouses, okay? It's so easy to say, hey, my spouse needs to listen to the show. But we need to start looking at ourselves. By the way, in counseling, and I've been doing this for over 30 years, and usually like the first session of counseling, when there's so much conflict, so much tension, there's a lot of finger pointing going on. Everything that your spouse has done wrong. They can't even sit on the same couch, talking about everything. And it's almost like they're calling out the spouse, like an altar call, expecting the spouse to have some sort of come to Jesus moment. And that never happens because the spouse is doing the same thing, pointing the finger back, and they're just blaming each other for everything. And I just say, time out, listen. That's not how Christian counseling works. You got to look at your own sin. In fact, do you remember, okay? Well, actually, I'll mention that later. But my point right now, let me just wrap up subpoint number 2, and that is you're deceiving yourself if you're blaming your spouse for everything. Sorry about that. I got a little excited there. Got a little ahead of myself. But remember, I'm going to give you point number 3, okay, underneath big point number 2. Got 3 going on down here, trying to flesh out the deception of anger. And the third one is, okay, anger is deceiving you when you refuse to take responsibility. You don't think it's your fault. You're not taking responsibility, or you do kind of sense it, but there's this unwillingness to take responsibility into that situation. Okay, George is messaging me. What's going on there? I got a message. Okay, Stuart? What's
Brad has a question. How do we respond to hurt besides anger?
I'm sorry, Brad, did you say? How do we respond to hurt? Brad, can you clarify that? How do you respond to hurt? What did you say instead? What's the preposition?
How do we respond to hurt besides anger emotion?
Okay, there's a lot of complications there, Brad. We're going to have to flesh out that question. First of all, should you even get hurt? Okay, the Bible talks about love covers a multitude of sins. If there's a violation, you don't have to get hurt. You can cover it in love. Okay, so that's always the first response, is to try to cover it in love. If you cannot cover it in love, there's plenty of biblical principles where you do go to your spouse and talk about what happened. So there's the dynamic. I think I'm going to do a show in the future about this, Brad. Remind me of it, and that is there are things that you should try to cover, and then there are times that if you can't cover it, you should talk about it. Matthew 18, verse 15, for example, says, if your brother sins against you, go show him his fault. He's still your brother, okay? So you love the sinner, hate the sin, you show him his fault. And the purpose of that in verse 15 is to win him over. And so there's definitely other options besides getting upset about it. Brad, I also want to recommend for you inside the Units tab, number 1. The very first thing or live show that we did. I don't think you were a community member at that time, but in that show, that was how many weeks ago? 6-7 weeks ago, where it's called Wisdom and Timing. And what it does is it kind of talks about Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29, where you got to diagnose the situation and then decide to speak. And so again, getting back to the scenario where you've been hurt or what have you, go listen to that show and then get back to me, okay? Because it talks about all the ways that you have to interpret the situation at hand, figure out the right words to say, things like that. There's a ton of stuff there. And please go there. I also want to recommend Dr. Don Owsley's show inside the Units tab about forgiveness. Because again, when you are hurt, angry is not the automatic response, or should not be, Brad. There is also the whole step-by-step process of forgiveness. But I got to move on, okay? If you have more questions, talk about it. But we are on sub-point number 3, underneath big question number 2, which is about your judgment being clouded. But sub-point number 3, follow the scroll please, is that anger is deceiving you when you refuse to take responsibility. You say things like, I can't help it. So now what are you deflecting responsibility, right? It's just who I am. You know, you kind of say all kinds of things to, again, refusing to take responsibility. Hey, you know what you were getting when you married me. And so when you start saying things like that, or take it or leave it, that's just who I am, you're deflecting responsibility. And that is not cool. Listen, if you are doing all of these 3 sub-points underneath big point number 2, test question number 2 about clouding judgment, and you're doing these things, for example, justifying anger, or blaming your spouse, or number 3, refusing to take responsibility. If you do those 3 things, and you are in a counseling session with me, I'm going to call you out. And I'm going to give you several warnings. And if you refuse to stop and continue, or in this case, refuse to take responsibility, I will terminate the counseling. I have done that, and I will continue to do it. Because listen, I don't have time for that kind of nonsense. I will give plenty of time. First session, second session, keep giving warnings. But if your heart is so clouded, so like you're not thinking straight and refusing to take responsibility, hey man, it's wasting my time. It's wasting everybody's time. I will terminate the counseling. Because counseling, listen, is all about looking at yourself, taking responsibility for yourself. And I want everybody who is watching the show tonight to take your eyes off your spouse and look at yourself. Do you remember in our first show, not the very first one, actually it was the second one, where it was on conflict, and I said in that show, it's in the Units tab, I said, self-inventory is the beginning of conflict resolution. I hope you remember that. If not, go check out the first show on conflict, where we went over the importance of looking at yourself and not automatically blaming your spouse. Okay, we're almost done here, okay? If you don't mind, let me just go 5 minutes over, because we covered big point number 1 and big point number 2, and then, or I should say, let's get started with big point number 3. Remember, the big question, the question of the night is, do you have an anger problem? And I promised to give you 3 points, yes or no. The first one was, do you let the devil influence your anger? Number 2, does your anger cloud your judgment? And now number 3, here's the big test question number 3. You know I'm going to give you 3 subpoints, right? But right now, big question number 3 is, do you regularly get angry? Drop that in the scroll, please, Dr. Don. Thank you for your help tonight. But listen, everybody gets angry once in a while, but do you always get angry? Is this a regular routine for you? Is this your MO? Your modus operandi? Is that how you always, like it's your go-to response? In fact, everybody knows that it's your go-to response. It's like people are hesitant to talk to you. People are hesitant to tap on your trash can because Oscar the Grouch is going to come out. Going to come out and get all mad about something. So it's kind of becoming, listen, a sinful habit. Now it's automatic. Okay? You might be happy for a while, but everybody knows you're going to default into anger. And so number 3, big number 3, really serious. Because now you are in a default mode of constantly getting angry. Okay? What's up, Stuart?
I wanted to repeat something that Brad said in the scroll. That he finds it hard to keep focusing on himself because he sees his faults and sins and repents to become a better man, but he thinks it takes both parties and it's discouraging when it's one-sided.
Yeah, I appreciate the honesty there, and you're absolutely right. It does take both sides. And so you, as the spiritual leader of the house, have to create a situation where both of you are growing. It reminds me of Ephesians chapter 5, Brad, where it talks about the husband's responsibility to love his wife as Christ loved the church. And there's one phrase there, washing her with the word. And so even though it is her responsibility to be involved in her spiritual growth, you're washing her. It is a purification or sanctifying process, a cleansing process that you are actually involved in. So Brad, think about ways that, and we don't have time today obviously, but think about ways that you can facilitate situations where you guys can grow together and work on it together. You're absolutely right. It's really hard for just one side to work on it. Both of you guys have to be on the same page and work on it together. And so again, I'm just going to stop right there and just agree with you that it's going to take 2 people to work on the situation. But you got to lead, okay? That's my little challenge to you tonight. You got to lead and facilitate that situation and try to make her better, okay, in that, okay? So now I'm going to give you, again, we're on big point number 3, which is, what was big point number 3? Habitually getting angry. Do you regularly get angry? And I was about to give you 3 subpoints underneath that. I've been doing that for every one of the 3 points, right? Giving you 3 subpoints. And so here we go. Really fast, okay? Just going to be a few minutes over here, I promise. 3 things about a habitually angry person. 3 things, okay? Number 1, the habitually angry person starts arguments. Okay, I'm going to go through these real fast, okay? Starts arguments. So now you're just constantly fighting all the time, inciting arguments, exacerbating situations. You are the exasperator, okay? What's that in King James word? Pugnacious. You're pugnacious. Okay, sounds really offensive, doesn't it? Do you want to be called pugnacious, Stuart? Okay, sounds really bad. No, he doesn't. He's shaking his head. He doesn't want to be called that.
No.
Okay, no, he says he doesn't want to be called Oscar the Grouch either, right? Somebody who's always starting an argument. So have you seen that on Facebook? Some people are just pugnacious, always ready to start, always ready to fight. I'm saying, come on, don't be like that. Reminds me of Proverbs chapter 15, verse 18. A hot-tempered man stirs up dissension. Okay, so you got a hot head, hot-tempered, and you're stirring things up all the time, and that is not good. Number 2, remember I'm giving you 3 subpoints underneath. Big test question number 3. The subpoint number 2 is habitually angry person always suffers consequences. I want you to listen. Just give me a minute here, okay? I promise. He's always paying the price. I mean, some consequence. Because he's always angry, there's some consequence. What? Somebody's feelings got hurt? Somebody got a black eye? I'm serious. Physically hurt? Emotionally hurt? You kicked the dog? Okay? Broken bone? Broken furniture? Broken window? There's always some consequence, meaning something went wrong. My point is, you always have to pay the price for that. Meaning, you got to pay for the broken window. You got to pay for a broken bone. You got to pay for this and pay for that. In other words, there's always a price to be paid. There's always some mess to clean up. So a hot-tempered man is somebody who always has to open up his wallet and fix something. Figuratively speaking, and literally too, if you got to fix a window. But you always got to fix something, okay? Say I'm sorry. You gotta mend the relationship. You got to fix this, fix that. Replace a lamp that you threw across the room. And so as you're doing all of these things, you're always in the mode of cleaning up some mess you made. That's a habitually angry person, always in the cleanup mode. There's always cleanup on aisle 5, right? Always something that's got to be cleaned up. You're the Angry Bird. Remember that game? Angry Bird that's always smashing things, and now you got to clean up all of that mess. Always apologizing, always making amends, always paying a price for your anger. And that is Proverbs chapter 19, verse 19. Please, lock in on that verse, please. Proverbs 19:19 says, a hot-tempered man must pay the penalty. But if you rescue him, you will have to do it again. So he's always paying the penalty, right? Paying a price. Open up his wallet, figuratively and literally. Pay a big price for all the damage that he has caused. And if you now have to rescue an angry man, you're going to have to do it again. And what a terrible cycle that is, that you have to constantly rescue somebody who is in that situation. And they might even promise saying, oh, I'm so sorry, I'll never do it again. But that's happening again. Rescuing over and over again. It never ends. And if it never ends, subpoint number 3. Remember, I'm giving you 3 for each one of these, right? Hopefully you got your notes organized. We're almost done here. Subpoint number 3 is the habitually angry person has become a slave to his anger. Or her anger. Let's be fair. Slave to anger. So he's lost control, and now anger controls him. We don't have a lot of time, but I don't think we need a lot of time right here. Maybe in the future we'll talk about addictions. But right now, that's what I'm talking about. You're addicted to anger. You're addicted to everything about it. The adrenaline that flows. The default mode that you're in. You're addicted. It's controlling you. It's 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 19, where it talks about being a slave or slaves of depravity. For a man is a slave to whatever has mastered him. He's not the master. It's mastered him. And so in this situation, it is an addiction that impacts his life and destroys every other life as well. And so that's it for tonight. Before I give you that gift, I promised you a gift, right? I'm going to, let me ask you the 3 questions, and did you answer yes or no? What score did you get? All right. 3 test questions. Answering the big question at the top. Do you have an anger problem? Number 1. Do you let the devil influence your anger? Number 2. Does your anger cloud your judgment? Number 3. Do you regularly get angry? Now, if you've answered yes for all 3, wow, we need to pray for you. You need to private message us so we can pray for you. And man, you got to do something about that, okay? 3 yeses, that is not good. But if you got 3 no's, anybody got 3 no's, Stuart? Okay.
Heather claims she's got 3 no's.
You know, like I said last week, I need to step down. Heather has to teach Talk Live Tuesday. That is a formal invitation, Heather. Okay, next Tuesday, all right, you're on. Good job. You got a perfect score last week. You got a perfect score this week. Awesome. Praise God. So everybody, would you just give Heather a big thumbs up? Because not saying she's perfect, but in this area, God is doing a great work, and just praising God for that. Okay?
Phil honestly says he got a no and a yes and a yes.
Okay. All right. Good job, Phil. Keep working on that. And I want to say last week, Jeannie Cha also got a perfect score. So happy or belated congratulations to you that God is doing a good work in your life on last week's show. But anyway, good job, you guys. But listen, when I prepared the show, I felt a little bad that it's only like 30 minutes, so there's no way to cover everything. And I want to get more information into your hands because this clearly is a very serious problem. 30-minute show, but you know what? There's hours and hours of stuff that we need to cover together. We don't have time, but here's my gift to you. I want to give you a free download, okay? And so all you got to do is to go there and get it. That's it. I'm talking about PastorTae.com, all right? And so go to PastorTae.com. Okay, my name is spelled T-A-E. So PastorTae.com. And on the home page right there, as soon as you go there, there's a little tab called Free Gift. Click that. and you will get a free download on anger. Okay, it's going to be probably like an hour and a half. So I would say you're going to get 80% more than what you got tonight. So there's a lot more stuff there. I hope that that'll bless you. And after you listen to all that, you're going to feel like, hey, that's not enough. And so you might want to pursue some more material. But right now, that is my free gift. I hope that you'll be able to use it. And so that's it for tonight. Before we go, I want to thank Dr. Don for his post-scroll support. I haven't seen the scroll, but I hope you had a good time edifying one another. If you have questions,
It's a riot.
It's a riot. Okay, hope you had a riotous time, and that you guys will get to know one another, network, because we got some great people in our community, leaders, and just awesome. So I love the community very much. George, would you drop inside the scroll our website, titus2ministry.org, because that's where we're going to house many of our resources, and you can find other things that will bless you there. Also, George, would you please drop the link for our newsletter, because we want to keep in touch with you and let you know about updates and other resources. So please click that link and subscribe and stay connected to us. And would you tell a friend so that the community grows and we can help one another, encourage one another every Tuesday, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern. Our prayers are with you. If you have an anger problem, you want to, take care of business, okay? Because this is one of the biggest things that can destroy a relationship. If you need help, if you need counseling, if you need prayer, you know we are here for you. That's one of the reasons why the community was established. And how what a blessing it is that our community is now over 600 people, and God is continuing to bless. And we truly want to give all the praise and thanks to God as we close tonight. Check out the units tab there or there. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at Talk Live Tuesday. Next week, you don't want to miss it, because we're going to be talking about in-laws. This is a big one, okay? We'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us for a devotional drink today. If you love Espresso, click here to subscribe so you know when the next one is ready to enjoy. Visit our website for resources for every chapter of your life. And if you're thirsty for more, click here. See you next time. May God bless your day.